welcome to Online Turkish School lesson number 11. Before I begin this lesson, I want to clarify something. There's been a remarkable amount of people who were asking me where I'm from, how long it took for me to learn Turkish, etc. Well guys, I was born in Turkey, and I've been living in Turkey for 22 years, and I'm 22 years old. So yeah, it took me around 22 years to become this fluent in the language, if you're wondering. So yeah, that's it. I'm not English, I'm not American, okay? So that's that. So, new verbs. In the 10th video we learned some verbs, around 10 verbs. In this video too we're going to learn around 10. So let's see. Yapmak, to do. A very useful verb, yapmak. Bitmek, to finish. When you see intr, it means intransitive. It means it can't take object. So this verb doesn't mean I finished my homework, etc. But it's like the movie finished, or the war ended. Like it ended itself. Alright? It doesn't have any object. It means that. Başlamak, to start, again intransitive, like the lesson started. It can't be used in the sentences like I started the lesson. No, that's something else, okay? That's called transitive. This is intransitive. So to start on one's own, okay? Gitmek, to go. Gelmek, to come. Seyretmek, to watch. We learned izlemek in the 10th video. It's exactly the same thing. It's synonyms, okay? Seyretmek or izlemek, you can use whatever you want. Yatmak, to have a nap or to go to bed. Or in certain phrases it can mean to have sex. Uyumak, to sleep. Dinlemek, to listen. Vermek, to give. This can also mean to have sex in certain occasions. Almak, to take. And sometimes to buy. Okay? It can mean both things. To take or to buy. Let's see them all in one window. Vermek, gitmek, seyretmek, yatmak, almak, yapmak, uyumak, dinlemek, bitmek, gelmek, başlamak. Try to remember what they meant, okay? If you can't remember, you can always go back, but you know, it's always better to start memorizing in the early stage. Now, among these words, some of them are opposites, like gelmek and gitmek are opposites, to come and to go. So are almak and vermek, to take and to give. Başlamak and bitmek as well, to start and to finish, to end. Alright? Now let's conjugate the verb yatmak, to have a nap or to sleep, to go to bed. We learned how to conjugate the words and verbs in the present tense in the 10th video. Now let's practice it. It's something that you already know. Yatıyorum, yatıyorsun, yatıyor, yatıyoruz, yatıyorsunuz, yatıyor or yatıyorlar. Now, let's take the verb gitmek, to go. Now, does it become gidiyorum? Normally it should, right? But the thing is, here we have consonant harmony, gidiyor, because of the T. So it becomes gidiyorum, gidiyorsun, gidiyor, gidiyoruz, gidiyorsunuz, gidiyor, or gidiyorlar. When I was teaching Turkish in, I think it was in Italy, a student of mine asked me, I was giving conversation classes back then, and those are hilarious, by the way. You know, you just speak your own language with the students. You just chat with them like, how was your weekend, how was the movie, etc. You just, you know, make them talk by talking in your own language, and then they pay you. That's an awesome feeling. Like, you can also ask them, I'm just talking my own language, why are you paying me? Well, anyway. So the student asked me, we have a verb itmek, it means to push, not a very important verb at the moment. So itmek and gitmek, right? Now, this is actually a better pair to see the awkwardness of the situation. So itmek becomes itiyorum, normal, but gitmek becomes gidiyorum. And the student asked me, why is this happening? And I had no idea. Actually, I have no idea at the moment either, but that day I went home and took my Turkish dictionary published by Turkish Language Academy, which has 2 volumes. I had both volumes, and I started from letter A and tried every verb in the dictionary from A to Z. It took me around an hour and a half. I conjugated them all in the present tense and in other tenses as well. It turns out there are only 4 verbs, which I'm going to show in a minute, that receive consonant softening. I think it's not that bad. I mean, I could have also said to you that some words take it, some not. You have to memorize them separately. In which case, it will be more dangerous, right? But now I'm going to give you the 4 verbs. Just memorize them as exceptions. And yeah, it shouldn't be that hard from then on. These 4 verbs in which T becomes T are gitmek, to go, tatmak, to taste, etmek, to make, etc. This verb we saw in seyir etmek. Etmek can be found in between the verbs as well, okay? So most of the verbs that end in etmek have this etmek, to make, the auxiliary verb in it, so it also becomes T. And gütmek means to herd, but this verb is practically never used unless you're a shepherd or you have farms, etc. So you can, delete it. So it's just gitmek, tatmak, and etmek, which receive consonant harmony. These four verbs in which T becomes T are as follows: gitmek, to go; tatmak, to taste; etmek, to make. It's an auxiliary verb that I'm going to show in a minute. And gütmek, to herd, like to herd cattle, to herd sheep, to herd cows, etc. It's a verb that you'll practically never use unless you're a shepherd or you have farms, etc. So you can delete it and just memorize gitmek, tatmak, and etmek. Okay. Apart from these verbs, there's no other exception. Okay, just these 4 have the consonant softening. So etmek, this is an auxiliary verb that has no sense in itself. It gains its sense, or rather gives a meaning to the previous verb. Okay, we have already seen the verb seyir etmek. It comes from seyir and etmek. That completes the meaning to watch. Okay, we have many verbs like that: affetmek, zannetmek, reddetmek, halletmek, sarf etmek, katletmek, and so on. You don't have to learn any of these verbs. I'm just giving them as an example. So yeah, etmek works like that. Most verbs that end in etmek really come from a verb plus etmek. But there are some verbs that seem like they end in etmek, but that's just a coincidence. I'm going to talk about this future in future, okay? In like 20th lesson or something. We're going to be analyzing stuff more detailedly, and you're going to grasp the idea much clearly, right? At the moment, just tell yourself that most verbs, like 90% of the verbs that end in etmek, receive consonant softening. Now, how to make a verb negative. In Turkish, verbs end in mek or mak. You have a root x, and then you have the suffix mek or mak. This is the form that you'll find in the dictionary. Now, to form negative, you add me between the root and the infinitive suffix mek. Okay, and if it's it's an e-type suffix, so you're going to have to harmonize. It can also become ma. So it's either me or ma that you put in between the root and the infinitive suffix mek or mak. Okay, that's it. From then on, you'll have to conjugate it like a normal verb. Let's see an example. So yapmak, to do, is conjugated as such: yapıyorum, yapıyorsun, yapıyor; yapıyoruz, yapıyorsunuz, yapıyor, etc. And if you want to make it negative, yapmak, you separate root and the infinitive suffix and put ma in between. So yapmamak, not to do. Now we're going to conjugate it as normally. You omit the infinitive suffix mak. Now you have a root that ends in vowel. If you remember, you have to omit that vowel too, yap, and then add ıyor, according to the vowel harmony. So, yapmıyorum, yapmıyorsun, yapmıyor, yapmıyoruz, yapmıyorsunuz, yapmıyor, or yapmıyorlar. Remember, sometimes we don't pronounce the R, which happens in yapmıyorsun, yapmıyor, yapmıyorsunuz. In those, you know. Yeah, that's it. I'm not gonna talk about it more. Now, however, I want to talk about something. We have conjugated our verb yapmak in both positive and negative. Now, when it's positive, the column on the left, we stress the of ıyor. Okay, so it's like this: yapıyorum, yapıyorsun, yapıyor, yapıyoruz, yapıyorsunuz, yapıyor, or yapıyorlar. See? Now, when it's negative, however, you conjugate, you stress the syllable that is before the negative suffix. So, yapmıyor, yapmıyorum, yapmıyorsun, yapmıyor, yapmıyoruz, yapmıyorsunuz, yapmıyor, or yapmıyorlar. Okay? So, when something is in negative, you stress the syllable that is before the negative indicator. Here the negative indicator is the M, right? M. So before that, we have the syllable yap, which happens to be the root of the verb. But it's, there's no such necessity. It doesn't have to be always like that. By the way, to clear something up, gitmek, to go, in present tense, positive affirmative sentence, it's gidiyorum, right? It receives the consonant softening because it's one of the four verbs: gitmek, tatmak, etmek, and gütmek. So, when it's negative, however, now we don't have such a case anymore because gitmemek and the root at the moment ends in gitm, and M doesn't really receive consonant harmony in any case. So, in negative, there's no consonant softening. So, pay attention to this also in the future in the other verbal tenses as well. A verb can receive consonant harmony or vowel harmony when it's in one particular form and doesn't take anything special in other forms as well. So, get yourself used to the situation. Gidiyorum is with D, but negative gitmiyorum is with T. Okay, so be careful. Now, frequency of verbs. I think I talked about this in my previous videos, but I can't remember it at the moment. Anyway, in any case, we're going to be studying them in a more detailed way. So, we have hep or her zaman, which means always. There are synonyms. You can use either hep or her zaman. And neredeyse, it's spelled as neredeyse, right? Neredeyse. But we usually pronounce it as neredeyse, omitting the second E. So neredeyse hep or neredeyse her zaman means almost always. Sık sık, pay attention, it's with ı, by the way. Sık sık, ı, not with e, that means something else. Sık sık, çoğunlukla or çoğu zaman, it means usually. You can use one of them. Genellikle, generally. Zaman zaman, from time to time. Bazen, sometimes. Nadiren, rarely. Neredeyse hiçbir zaman or neredeyse asla means almost never. Hiçbir zaman or asla means never. Now the trick here is neredeyse hiçbir zaman and hiçbir zaman or asla, so almost never and never, are always used with negative. So in Turkish what you're saying is, normally in English you would say I never do it, but in Turkish you have to say I never don't do it. Okay? It looks like double negative. It is actually double negative, but it's like that. In English double negative means positive, but in Turkish not. Okay? So I never don't do it is Tarzan English, but an aristocrat Turkish, okay? Correct Turkish. So be careful, never and almost never are always with negative. Let's see some examples. The sentences are a little long, but it's nothing you don't know, okay? They are easy. Futbol maçlarını her zaman kafede seyrediyor. He or she, probably he, watches the football matches always at a cafe. Football in Turkish is soccer, by the way, okay? Not rugby or American football. Çoğunlukla cumartesi günleri evimde parti veriyorum. Most of the time, mostly, usually, I give party at my house on Saturdays. In English you say to throw a party, in Turkish to give a party. Genellikle fantastik kitapları okuyorsun. In general, you read fantasy books, like Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings. Zaman zaman erken uyuyorum. From time to time, I sleep early. Erken means early. Bazen müzik dinliyorum. Sometimes I listen to the music. Neredeyse asla, almost never, uyumuyorlar. They don't sleep. Pay attention, negative. Because the neredeyse asla means almost never. Almost never, they don't sleep. So it's like, they almost never sleep. And asla, asla demiyorum. I never say never. But what we exactly say is, I never don't say never. Okay? So don't get confused with the double negative. How to make a question. Now you remember that in Turkish we have the particles me, mu, mu, mu to do questions, right? It turns out we use it in the present tense as well. Now, there are forms as you see because of the vowel harmony, but I'm going to give you a trick. Since we're dealing at the moment with the present tense, which has a suffix ior, which has o as its last vowel, we're going to be dealing all the times with u, because o and u go together, so it's going to always be mu. But if you don't want to memorize like this, then you can always double check in your mind with vowel harmony and find out the solution yourself. Now, as an example, let's take the verb gelmek, to come, and let's conjugate it in the present tense. Normally it becomes geliyorum, geliyorsun, geliyor, geliyoruz, geliyorsunuz, geliyor. I'm coming, you're coming, etc. And I mark the personal suffixes, which marks I, ben, sun, sen, etc. Now, to make a question, observe what I'm gonna do. Did you get the trick? Now what I did is put the question word mu and shift the personal suffixes, put it after the question verb. So geliyor the personal suffix that marks the first person singular, which is I put it after the question verb. But since the question verb ended in a vowel and this suffix started in a vowel, we don't want two vowels, so I put a Y. As you see, it doesn't happen in the second case because there's no two vowel situation. So that's what I did basically. I chopped the personal suffixes and added them again at the end of the question verb. So geliyor muyum, geliyor musun, geliyor mu, geliyor muyuz, geliyor musunuz, geliyor mu. Okay, since the third persons don't have any suffix, we don't add anything. By the way, this is not very important, but the third person plural, I didn't write it either, I'm just going to say it. Third person plural, they, sometimes you can add the plural suffix as well. So geliyor can become geliyorlar, which doesn't change the meaning, but both are correct. If you really want to use the plural, then the thing is, you don't put the plural at the end of the question verb. So it always, it always stays in the verb. So the plural formed third person plural would be geliyorlar mı, because of vowel harmony it would be mı. So just forget about it and go with a singular form even if it's third person plural. Okay, you can master that later on. So that's that. The making question forms is simple matter. I'm not going to give any more examples about it. So that's it. Now let's put a break. I want to talk about the cases. Now the cases is something that doesn't exist in English. In German, in Russian, in Slavic languages, etc., it exists. It allows you to forget about the prepositions. So, instead of saying at home or in the restaurant, etc., you can just omit in Turkish, you can just omit the in and them and change the formation of the word, the structure of the word, and it gives that meaning from there on. It gives the meaning of in the, at the, on the, from, etc. That is called cases. In Turkish we have 6 cases: nominative, accusative, dative, locative, ablative, and genitive. 4 of these you already know. Nominative is, the forms that you found in a dictionary. They're the subjects of sentences like adam, oda. Accusative is the object form, which you use to show the direct object in a sentence, like adamı, odayı. Locative is something that you learned when I was teaching you the months, the seasons, etc. When you want to say in January, etc., you use this locative case. Adamda, odada, etc. It gives the meaning in, at, on. And you also know the genitive, which is the possessive form, like adamın, the man's, odanın, of the room, etc. Now we're going to be learning dative. So dative is marking the indirect object in a sentence. You'll see in a minute. Now let's take the sentence, I'm giving the book to Chris. Now, the book is our direct object. What am I giving the book? Thus, it is an accusative in Turkish. You already know that. To Chris is our indirect object. And it's put in dative. Okay? So, dative is usually used with the preposition to. So, who am I giving to? I'm giving to Chris. Now the accusative case, as you remember, we marked it with I, U, or U. And the indirect object, data, we're going to mark it with E or A. It's simpler. Now if we wanted to translate this sentence to Turkish, it would be ben kitabı Chris'e veriyorum. I'm giving the book to Chris. I marked with accusative what I am giving. It's my direct object, it's my object. It's the object that I give, so it's the book here. And the person whom I'm giving it to, it's Chris, and it's my indirect object, which the verb acts indirectly. So it's Chris, and I'm put in dative form, adding e. And of course this sentence could have been constructed in a different syntax, like ben Chris'e kitabı veriyorum, which is exactly the same thing and correct. Or Chris'e kitabı ben veriyorum, or veriyorum kitabı Chris'e ben, and stuff like that. And of course, as the verb already has the personal suffix, I can also omit the personal pronoun ben, so I can just say without the subject pronoun. You see, thanks to dative and accusative, etc., thanks to the cases, you have a perfectly free word order. If you are an English person or French person, in which you put the subject and then the verb and then the object, you can go with that structure. It's totally understandable, okay? Or if in your language you put the verb in the beginning, like I think in Arabic and Persian they do that, you can put the verb in the beginning and put the other verbs. As long as you put the correct cases, your sentences will be correct and understood, okay? So I think that's a good thing. I think that's not a complication. So yeah, that's that. So, long story short, dative denotes emotion towards an object or a person. Gitmek, to go, is a perfect example for this verb, and it's used solely with dative. Ben okula gidiyorum. I'm going to the school. Towards the school, right? It's emotion towards it. Or if you want to say, I'm giving the book to Chris. So the book will travel from your hands to his hands. So it's a motion towards Chris. That's why Chris is in dative. Or another example, you can say something to someone. The thing that you say comes from your mouth and goes to his ears. So it's a motion, right? So words like that, it's usually concordant with among the languages. In English, in most cases, you use to, and we use dative. There are some exceptions, but like 90% of the time it will be alright. Okay, so don't really trouble your mind with how am I going to memorize it, how am I going to learn it, etc. It's usually probably concordant with your language as well. Now, in nominative case, the subject pronouns are ben, sen, o, biz, siz, onlar, which are equal to I, you, he, she, it, we, you, they in English. In accusative, as we learned, there are beni, seni, onu, bizi, sizi, onları, which equates to me, you, him, her, it, us, you, them. How about in dative? In dative, we've got a simple trick, simple exception. Ben becomes bana, so the root changes to bana, and sen becomes sana. Okay, that's the only exception. I think in Azeri, in other Turkic languages like Kyrgyz, etc., I think they say bene or sene, but I'm not sure. In Turkish, of Turkey, it's bana and sana, and the rest are normal. O, ona, bize, size, onlara. Okay? These are translated to English as to me, to you, to him, to her, etc. Now, of course, we also have kim, the interrogative pronoun who, kim, who. Kimi is the accusative form of it, and kime would be the dative, to whom. Also, ne, what, neyi, what, again, it's the same in English. Neye, to what. And we can also learn how to say nere, means where. Nereyi, it's also where it's not very used, but it exists theoretically. And dative would be nereye, to where. The question where are you going would be formed with nereye. Okay. Homework time. I'd like you to do this homework. By the way, before doing this, I also want you to conjugate the verbs that I taught you today and in the 10th lesson, both in positive forms, negative forms, and in question forms. And preferably, you can try to do negative question verbs, which I didn't teach, but it's nothing special. You can do it with the same logic. Okay. First, do that. There are around 20 verbs with this lesson and the previous lesson. Conjugate them all in all forms, and then start on this homework. You're going to conjugate the verbs given in the parentheses. Okay. You can pause the video and note them. And the second part of the homework, or rather the third part, you're going to put the words given in parentheses in correct case, accusative, dative, or locative. Okay, depending on the meaning of the sentence. Pay attention to the meaning of the sentence. Okay, just don't directly jump into bold conclusions. So grasp the meaning and use the appropriate case. That's my only tip here. So, I'm trying to answer to all your questions that you send me via PM or on Facebook. If I miss any of them, sorry about that. And again, those who finish or those who do their homework can send me their work, and I'm gonna correct them, alright? So that's it. I'm gonna see you hopefully next week, but I don't promise anything. I'm a lazy person. Sometimes it takes me like 2 weeks to do, or 3 weeks even, to do a video. So see you in the next lesson rather, and take care of yourselves. Happy learning with Turkish. Goodbye.